ready to go. We got Mr. Jeremy Rutherford. He is with Vicon, Decon, and Fire, based out of Omaha, Nebraska. And he's going to be talking to us about something probably new to most of us here today. So it'll be, you got the floor, Jeremy.
Yeah, compressed air foam systems, CAVs. Anyone that volunteers with the fire department or has been here around, you're going to hear probably negative things aspects, usually because they're playing with pressure vessels or air aspirated systems. But CAVs are a true wildland help in dealing with wildfire, and therefore a very, very handy tool in prescribed fire. I met Brian Teeter a year ago, and that's kind of was my introduction to bringing our equipment over to the prescribed fire side of things, so we can attempt to help with efficiencies, attempt with spot fire issues and controlling it much faster. And then water scarcity is obviously one of the biggest issues. We hear that a lot in Nebraska, that it's, we got plenty of water, we got all the water in the world, we got an aquifer underneath, right? But literally, I was just on Pine Ridge Reservation, they had a structure fire, their mutual aid refused to give them any more than 3,000 gallons of water. It's just north of here, right? So it's happening all over. It's gonna continue to get more scarce, and you're gonna need tools and capabilities to be able to combat that if you're gonna continue to be successful in burning as much as really is necessary. Leave the sales aspect as much as I can out. Our equipment is over at the demo, but I'm with IntelliGuard, and our history a bit is started in the early 90s. Our owner, a wildland firefighter, ran up into the mountains on a little night drive, found a house burning that a fire truck couldn't even get up the hill to get to. And that got him on some ideas on specific compressed air foam systems for homes that were stationary. That moved into a miniaturized, patented pump system that honestly can be about the size of a human heart, believe it or not. So it's able to push a lot of material. It's going to expand the water capabilities by 35 times, or 30 if you're on the higher wildland equipment side. So you're expanding your resources. One of the biggest things that on prescribed fire that I've heard in comments of the benefits are a visible wet line that we can either fan spray and make a foot wide, or we can drop a mid-X nozzle on it and let your foam sit this tall. If you're dealing with maybe a mow break that isn't quite as mowed as it could be, it's more laid down, whatever your scenarios are, you have those capabilities to decrease your fire time as far as the time that it's going to take. The other side of that, and really for me is the biggest in talking with Brian and the ways that we could possibly help, is that spot fire aspect. Those spot fires, everybody has to drop everything, everybody has to run over, everybody has to take care of it. How many times do you hit it with water and it comes back, right? If you're coming over to that and you're dropping it with foam and you're covering it with your smooth bore or your fan spray, and then you drop a mid-X nozzle on and you literally pour it because you're worried about sparking, it's not going to happen. With our compressed air foam technology, we have a patented technology inside it called EnviroShield, and it essentially creates a foam that is perfect bubble structure, all polymembric membranes, no air is able to penetrate this at all. Reason why we're decon and fire is because that same equipment is capable to handle a decon slurry and some thicker things. With CAVs, you want to make sure that you have equipment that is capable of drafting or drawing water if you need to. Obviously, in prescribed fire, you may not need tools that Ted Tehan needed with the Forest Service, that we just helped outfit their Defender with one of our gas-powered bad systems here I'll tell you about in a second. But with prescribed fire, we have systems more for an ATV unit that is literally 5.5 pounds empty. I mean, I put it over. Heavy, if it's loaded down, it's 200 pounds. I mean, some of the guys in here can bench that. It's not an expensive piece of equipment. It fits right on a burn trailer very, very quickly, very easily. And that particular unit, the ATV unit, is a 14-gallon unit. So you're multiplying that by 35 times, and you're dropping that foam. That same ATV unit can be outfitted with a spray bar that the ATV unit has a 4-foot wet line that we can run that 14-gallon tank for a half a mile. That's obviously extremely helpful with wet lining. With our gas-powered system that we outfitted the Can-Am Defender with for Ted Tihan's team, we built them a custom spray bar that at 34 inches off the ground, they have a 91-inch spray, and they're going to be able to valve it either way. So left or right, they're going to be able to turn it on and flip a switch in their Can-Ams. So they're going to be able right side, left side, and they've got a nice solid wet line. You've got a high-powered system that's going to penetrate, especially if you're in a western part of Nebraska with some sandy soils. U.S. Forest Service out there have told us that they've had problems with fire running right under the foam in those wet lines. And so they want to make sure that they're going to have that penetration. They're going to have a system that drops a foam down that's going to do the job, right? They don't want to look back a half a mile and see a break. Those are a lot of the other benefits. I mean, those are the main benefits of using a compressed air foam system for prescribed fire. The other aspect is we're working on is the insurance side of things. As a lot of you guys can understand, we want to show the insurance companies and prove out that when you have a tool that is as capable as a high-powered CAF, you really are in a much safer position than if you're dealing with water. And that's, I'll argue that all day long, every day, and prove it out anytime I can. 35 times more water is just a smart, flat reason to have that capability. On the other side of that, if your spot fire gets too crazy, if you have a CAF on site and you're calling in mutual aid, that's time. That's 30 minutes. That's 40 minutes, depending on where you're at. You have that CAF on system on site. You're able to continue to lay down some suppression and hopefully be able to deal with that spot fire before, or at least keep it knocked down to as minimal as possible to where a mutual aid may be able to make it in. Quickly, I was just going to kind of show something we did 10 years ago with, you can go ahead and press play, with the U.S. Army in Hawaii. And we ran this entire burn that I believe was 120 acres with 2 ATV units, 2 guys on those ATVs, and they had a torch as well. So literally one-man teams, torch and suppression for wet lining, and they were able to complete this entire burn the way they describe it in the video, and you can go to IntelliGuard to check out all the YouTube stuff that they have. But they described this, that it would generally take 10 engines on site to handle this fire. And that's not my words, that's the description on the video. So I wasn't there 10 years ago, but it does give you an idea of how long we've been doing this, how long we've been working with different entities to help deal with the suppression side of a burn, and then of course spot fire protection. That is literally all talk aspect that I have. I know that majority of you probably haven't used calves on prescribed burns. If you have, it may have been with me in the last few years here in Nebraska, but I want to get to those questions because I know you guys have some questions. We have demo equipment over as well for the 6 to 7 show. We brought our big H1 80-foot stream inch hose wildland system. We brought our Merlin hand cart. Unfortunately, our ATV's transmission is out. So we brought the hand cart, which has the exact same pump as the SR2 system that Ted Tihan's team bought on their Can-Am system. So you can kind of see that power and what it would look like even in a small contained space. That hand cart typically is used with the hazmat teams because we hold 2 different containers and they use that for decon. But it's just a great compact tool that I could come show you the capabilities of the calves. And we're going to draw wet lines. We're going to show you what the foam actually looks like. It's not soapy water. You're playing with shaving cream essentially. And the burn we just did in November, those wet lines stayed ridiculously long, obviously because the hot weather wasn't affecting it. So I guess with that, I'm open to questions, comments, anything you guys have for me. Please.
What's the ratio of like Class A foam to like water?
Yeah.
How much?
So,
15 gallons of water, how much foam?
yeah, so typically you're at a 1% ratio on WD-881, which is a lot of what we sell. We have a few different foams that we work with that are only, we've got one green screen presidential award with PyroCool. It's a coolant foam. WD-881's been used forever in wildland, has been approved for environment. So we definitely stick to those foams, but yeah, it's a 1% ratio on that one. PyroCool, for instance, though, would be a 0.4. So it really does depend on what foam you're using. If you're on the ATV unit, we sell the WD-881 in 8-ounce bottles, and it's essentially 2 8-ounce bottles in that 14-gallon tank. Yeah.
How long does it last on the ground?
So that is going to depend upon your weather and humidity levels and things of that nature. So that's where I was saying on November 20th, we did a burn north of Erickson, Nebraska. It was probably 45 degrees or something along those lines. It wasn't terribly cold, but those wet lines were done well into we were done with the burn. We did 30 acres, probably started around 11:45, and they were in their trucks literally pulling off the land by 4:15. Now, I didn't wetline that whole burn per se. We brought 2 systems, and we were kind of testing out the different nozzles and whether they liked the taller mid-X nozzle where it stuck higher up or the fan spray, and really just kind of getting used to, which in my experience has to be dependent upon the brake that you have. If you're on a mow brake that really just got laid down and not mowed very well, my spray bar isn't going to work that well. You're going to want to do a fan spray and just do a 2 foot wet line. But your torch lighters appreciate that wet line tremendously. So that wet line is going to definitely last long enough, and even in the heat, for your torch lighters to follow and get there no problem. We just ran the spray bar when we dropped off the unit July 12th. It was 105 degrees in Halsey that day. That wet line evaporated in a good 6-7 minutes completely, you know. But that was where we put the wet, we had, they haven't gotten their Can-Ams yet, unfortunately. So to test the system, we put it in the back of a pickup, and their spray bar is a trailer hitch attachment. So we can raise it, lower it. So they had it really high. It was probably 50 inches off the ground. So we didn't get a solid spray per se in my level, but kind of give you an idea of way it could go. I mean, I've seen the foam stick for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours. It all just depends on that weather. Most of the time when you're 120 degrees, you're not able to burn anyway. Somehow, Brian Teeter, the man that he is, we did it last July, but they only let us do 2 acres. So. What other questions you guys have?
What sort of upkeep and cleaning/maintenance do you need to do on the cab system?
Yeah. So the cab system, once you run it for the day, you'll fill it maybe halfway through. Run some water. Make sure you get anything out along those lines. Our cab systems, if you're drafting from, if you're stuck in a situation you have to draft from a pond or a river or a lake, our systems will actually take even brackish water with up to a half-inch debris, which most systems can't handle. So that's a higher capability with some of the larger systems that have that draft capability. But that really starts off at our SR2, which is a gas-powered unit, has an air compressor right on it. You can run your air tools, has a 50-gallon tank. Again, multiply that by 35 times for your ratio. That's going to be your more, 2,700 acres earlier Ted did. That's why he has that tool, because he's burning big burns, and he wants to make sure he has that high-powered fire suppression. And the other thing that I want to make sure I clarify, I thought I'd get the question, but these systems are run off of air tanks at our backpack, at our ATV unit, our Merlin UTV unit, and even the Merlin handcart that I'll have today is all run off air tanks, SCBA tanks. So when dealing with prescribed fire, that's an issue sometimes for some prescribed fire associations. If they don't have those tanks, or if they don't have the capability to fill the tank, usually if you're working with a volunteer fire department, they are going to have the capability to help you with tanks if you own the equipment, and help out in that regard. That's why the systems that are larger, like the SR2, if you're really doing a lot of burns, and this is your plan for years, it makes complete sense to go out and get a higher quality system that is going to be gas powered, is not going to give you any problems, and going to give you all the fire suppression power you need. And that's where I was talking about the insurance. We want to impress upon the insurance companies how much this fire suppression capability is going to lower the risk. These spot fires, these logs that are going to continue to burn, if you're just filling them with foam, you're much, much safer. The burn we did up in Erickson, you got to run around and get the cow pies, right? Well, you're on an ATV. The owner was running around like they were a kid, like zooming between cow pies that were steaming in the field. It was kind of funny, really, but that just helps with the efficiency side of things. She didn't have anything else to worry about. She knew that she hit every dung pile in that entire burn in basically 30 minutes after we were done with the burn, just to give it a little extra. That's some power safety, yeah.
How long does your SCBA tank last?
So, yep, you're gonna do, the ATV unit will get 2 runs on that 14-gallon tank on one
The
tank.
2160 or the 4500?
4,500. The Merlin MP is capable with 2 tanks, and that would be more for the UTV, has a bit larger tank at 26 gallons. So for folks that are looking to outfit a UTV and have a little more fire suppression, that's where I would go. And then for the folks that need a piece of equipment that, again, like thousands of acres, you're more along like the fire service, it's the perfect tool.
Can you, with y'all's system, I have not seen y'all display it,
Mm-hmm.
but can y'all hook it up to, let's say, a regular air hose, air compressor and hose? And that way, let's say a general landowner or anybody for that matter could have a gas-powered compressor on the bed of a truck, or even a electric cigarette lighter air compressor on an ATV, and have more of a sustainable air source.
Thank you for the question. Yes, these smaller systems are capable to connect to low-pressure air systems. So these same systems, like our backpack, or we have a bucket and wheel system for remediators, because we do decon and fire. So these systems can be run off of an air compressor. So that's where I was saying, like, our SR2 is a gas-powered system, has the air compressor right on it, has a 50-gallon tank, and our double pump that runs 5 gallons per minute each pump. And so that's the 10 gallons per minute on that particular SR2 unit. Or like I said, when you see us at the demo, I'll have my Merlin cart, and that is the same 2-pump system that controls our big SR2, that shoots 40 feet and has that capability. So these pumps, again, are incredibly small and incredibly powerful and durable. They were made, when the initial contract happened and they made the smaller units, we were tested for 8 years with the US government and were chosen as their #1 choice of fire suppression. They didn't lose a single vehicle that had a Macaw backpack on it to fire. We've never had one unit come back broken, other than a hand trigger. Yeah.
Can you retrofit a unit on an existing wildland truck?
I'll tell you, yes, it's FICON, Decon, and Fire. And Telegard will, they want to make sure that their custom systems are what they are. But I'll tell you right off the bat, we brought out what we did to the Forest Service, and Nate saw a couple of ways that he could tinker and make that spray bar better, i.e. he's doing the switches inside and letting the valve shut on and off. So yes, you can customize what you need to customize, and if you're fairly mechanically inclined, you'll understand how the whole system works except for the pump. And the pump is locked up, it's proprietary. If you own the equipment for long enough, you're gonna start to learn a little bit what we do, because we do have to maintain those after a few years, just to check them and make sure things go. But since these are all military grade, this equipment is made to last 20 years or longer, or we wouldn't have had that contract for the equipment side.
So can you hook it up to the truck air system?
As long as it has an air compressor system that is at least, we typically recommend 12 CFM, and it has to be 100 PSI. Then you'll have the power, the true power of the system itself. Do I have remediators or other customers that use a 6 CFM air compressor on it? Yes. Does it work? Yes. It just doesn't shoot as far, and it isn't quite as powerful.
I'll ask it, what's the cost?
So backpack systems is about the same as the ATV system, and if you're buying a tank, it's ballpark 5,300. Merlin is somewhere around 7 to 8. And SR2 with all of that is 40, 42. Our H1 system that you're going to see out there today that shoots 80 feet, uses either an inch or an inch and a half hose, and is truly a wildland firefighting system, is 65 and up, depending upon the customization of it. But yeah, so across the gamut, equipment like our ATV unit that only weighs 65 pounds, you can carry it right on and off your burn trailer, load it onto the ATV, fill it with water, and run and go. That's the benefit to me on that one for prescribed fire. You just have, and I get it, it's a hurdle in dealing with the air bottles, and so people can make it work for them, or some people can't. The air compressor thing, if you're wanting to install the calves, is an excellent way to push, to be able to put a system together where, yeah, you've got your air compressor right there in the truck. You throw, our Merlin MP in there, and now you've got a 26-gallon tank that's going to continue to run off your air as many times as you want to fill it. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out. I look forward to seeing you guys over at the demo.
And you said y'all have a booth here?
Don't have a booth, but we will, like I said, have the trucks over, already parked at the demo. We're going to shoot the drone out of the sky if that works for you guys. They got the cooler technology, I admit it.
It's all wet in.
Yeah.